What's up guys, it's me Jeremy. The preseason patch notes are out, and amongst all the buffs and nerfs that are taking place, there's always going to be some hidden or indirect buffs as a result of the changes. Balance in League is all relative, so a buff or nerf to one thing is going to have some impact on another area of the game. The preseason patch is huge, and with it comes a whole bunch of indirect changes. As well, I'll have a video on the indirect nerfs coming later in the week. Let's get started. The first group of champions that received an indirect buff are assassins, specifically the attack damage assassins. With the buffs to 80 carries, champions who can flank the backline and assassinate a target are going to play a huge role in countering the new Season 6 powerhouses that are the 80 carries. Being able to kill a high priority target will have a much more meaningful impact in team fights, since if you can kill the opponent's 80 carry while yours stays alive, it's going to be a pretty easy team fight win just about every single time now. Assassins are essentially the main counter to 80 carries, and with the newfound relevance of 80 carries in the meta, assassins essentially get a little bit of a step up. As well, more specifically, attack damage assassins are getting a huge boost from the new items and the new keystone masteries that are being introduced into the game, and they work really well with their kits and go a long way to helping them accomplish their goal of jumping in, killing a target, and still surviving. The next group of champions that got an indirect buff, it's a little bit similar to assassins, but it's AD casters and bruisers, specifically those that can benefit from critical strikes, like Yasuo and Pantheon. I've grouped them together because they're receiving their indirect buffs for essentially the exact same reason. AD casters and AD bruisers are definitely the clear winners of the Season 6 Keystone Masteries and Season 6 items. Not only can they build the AD carry items, they can also build a lot of the new stuff like Death's Dance, the new Youmuu's Ghostblade, and with the new Tiamat exchange rate, and a whole bunch of other stuff, the item power that these guys are going to have in Season 6 is incredible. As well, the new Warlord's Bloodlust Mastery puts in some crazy work for champions that have crit built into their kits, like Pantheon, Yasuo, Tryndamere, those guys. But other bruisers as well can still use Grasp of the Undying for some awesome sustain too. These guys do an awesome job of being tanky while still being able to put out a relevant damage source, allowing them to play somewhat of an assassin role in teamfights, or at the very least a nice frontline role. But they also do a great job of countering assassins too, at least in lane, due to their tankiness. And as well, they also synergize quite effectively with assassins on their team by helping them with their dive, or perhaps providing that frontline presence. So not only did they get a buff through items and masteries, they're set up to totally dumpster the meta, or at least what the meta is shaping up to be, and are likely to be a super dominant force heading in to Season 6. Next up, supports also received an awesome indirect buff as well. Anytime 80 carries get buffed, it's going to be an indirect buff to supports because they do a great job of protecting them and keeping them alive in teamfights, as well as just getting them a lead in the early game. The buff to 80 carries is going to allow supports to carry harder, especially in teamfights, and overall just be more impactful in the game. They counter assassins, they counter bruisers, 80 casters, and just about everyone else who's trying to kill your 80 carry, and that's going to be more important than ever in Season 6. As well, with the removal of green wards, controlling vision is also going to be super important, and it's a job where the tools are mostly placed in the hands of the support. And since you won't be getting as much help from your team anymore, how well you perform in that area is going to matter a lot more, and so supports will play a much more crucial role during the mid and late game. And to top it all off, you got the new Keystone Masteries, the first one being Windspeaker's Blessing, which is going to do a ton with utility-based supports, especially those like Janna who have a buff incorporated into their shields. And also the Bond of Stone Keystone Mastery is going to allow tank supports to help protect their carries by soaking up some of the damage that they might take in a fight. So not only will it be more important than ever for supports to protect your carries, it's also going to be a lot easier too. And so the support carry is more real than it's ever been. And as well, champions who can place traps or objects on the map that give vision also received an indirect buff. Champions like Teemo, Shaco, Rek'Sai, those kind of guys. Champions who can put things on the map that is going to give your team vision. And because of the removal of green wards, the map is going to be super starved of vision overall, and it's going to be quite limited, especially in the early to mid game, before level 9, before people upgrade their trinkets. And these kind of traps you can place down serve as somewhat of like a pseudo ward to help give your team a lot more vision than your opponents. Vision is definitely one of the most important aspects of the game, and those kinds of champions now have a super meaningful tool at their disposal that wasn't necessarily as impactful as before, since you could really just buy green wards and have vision anyways. Now it's actually kind of impossible almost to fulfill those vision roles, or at least get as much vision as you might need across the entire map, especially before level 9. So those kinds of champions are going to become extremely powerful and will be a huge factor for those kinds of champions in terms of team composition and what they can bring to a game. And it definitely shouldn't be underestimated. So that just about wraps it up. Those were all of the hidden buffs I could come up with. So maybe I missed something, let me know, leave a comment, and thanks for watching everybody.